Welcome to another episode of the ASQ Podcast, where we explore the journey of personal and collective growth and empowerment. In today's episode, Choose Your Vehicle, we explore the profound significance of selecting a spiritual or psychological practice to navigate our quest for fulfillment and connection to the universe. Stay tuned.
All right, so what are we talking about?
Well, that's a good question.
Okay.
Choose your vehicle.
Choose your vehicle.
What do you mean by, and I think we alluded to this in our last episode, but
yes.
what are you referring to, vehicle?
Yeah, I think that
not like a Maserati or a Mercedes Benz or anything, right?
it could be like an analogy for that, right? I mean,
Well,
some
good.
people think that there's a vehicle that's better than others, but the
Good
idea
point.
of a vehicle, right?
Mhm.
A mode of transportation is to get you expediently from point A to
Mhm.
point B,
Correct.
right? That's the idea of a vehicle, a mode of transportation, right? So now, for individuals, those vehicles change, right? Some people may need a tractor for their form of transportation. Some people may need a plane. Some people may need a boat. Some people may need a car. Some people may need a motorcycle, or they choose one of those modes of transportation that suits them best, right?
Mhm.
So when we are embarking on our quest, we need to pick a vehicle that suits us for the purpose of our quest, of our trajectory. But it has to be a vehicle that makes sense to us, right? Now, in particular,
To you personally.
right?
Okay.
In particular, I'm referring to either a spiritual or religious practice, or a scientific or psychological discipline for you to follow, or something that gives you a structure, a frame of being or behaving with a certain discipline
Right.
that you perform on a regular basis, right? So, for instance, in the past, when religions were more prevalent, and and there's still cultures in which religions and the religious practices are still very powerful, and they really inform what a society is supposed to do, right? There are practices and disciplines that they do on a daily basis or a continuous basis. They do it daily, yearly, monthly, to make sure that they stay connected to the whole, right? Which is the ultimate objective, right? So, for instance, Hindus in Judaism and in Islam, you pray at certain times during the day. You have these dictated disciplines that are helpful to help you connect to the ultimate, to the creator, to nature, or whatever. So the idea is that you have to figure out what that path is for you. There has been many paths, many vehicles that have been predetermined, by many religions, and there are many spiritual, now more modern psychological practices that were able to help you stay connected, with the ultimate goal of adhesion to everything, so they understand that the individual and the collective, and this is the way that you connect on a regular basis on that.
So let me just for some people who are going to be like, oh, I'm not religious and I'm not spiritual. Okay. For those people who are listening, because I've heard people say that to me.
Correct.
You know what I mean? I don't think what we're saying is just in those two realms, right?
No.
But I think that when we're talking about a discipline or a practice or something that we're doing to connect, that connection is what you deem it to be, right?
Correct.
Some of us want to connect to that inner depth of ourselves that make us feel inspired, motivated, or give us a sense of purpose or, belonging to ourselves. Because that's like, I want to make sure I say that, because it's not belonging to everything else, but belonging to ourselves. And I stole that from Brene Brown. I know I'm a big Brene Brown person, but it's a sense of belonging to us, to ourselves, right?
Yes.
And so when you're saying this, you're not necessarily just speaking from the religious or that sort of aspect, but also just doing a practice that makes us feel connected to our inner
Correct.
higher selves.
So,
right?
so here's the thing, right? Again, being someone that has always been curious about the purposes of religion and the reasons for religion, there are two aspects of religion that are very interesting, and most people don't seem to kind of like realize it. But I, again, using I statements, by looking at things and exploring things, I know there are two main functions of religions from my point of view, right? Number one is the cultural and the time and place that a culture originated and its purpose, right? So that portion is to give a structure to a society, to give a certain mode of relating one another and to the whole, the society as a whole. So there are Jewish principles that the society and the culture of Judaism follows. There are Islamic principles that the society of Islam follows, and there are breaks in between that. There are principles, collective principles, that Christianity and the many branches kind of follows, right? So these are cultural and things that have to do with a certain time and a certain frame, and that how the society functions. Right? That's one aspect of it. The other aspect, which is I think is the fundamental aspect when it comes to all religions, and it's like the underlying thing between all of them, right? Is this idea of how the individual connects to the whole. And the whole, you could change it, from my point of view, you could change it for whatever it is. Some people say God. Some people say the universe. Some people say nature. Some people say whatever it is that people decide to call it, right? To me, from what I've seen and what I understand, truth is one, right? Like Joseph Campbell said, they say just call it by many different names. It's important to understand, right? And this is kind of like the emphasis for me, is that whatever vehicle you choose, if it suits you, stick with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the problem lies in when we start saying, well, my vehicle is a Maserati while yours is a Hyundai.
So mine's better than yours.
Precisely.
Yeah.
See, this is when we start getting in a comparison. But we forget those two functions, the functions of the standards of a society, of a group, that it's necessary to maintain a balance in the world, right? Society doesn't function without certain standards, without certain values, without certain principles. It doesn't work. Any organization, any group, we need that, right? And that's a unifying function that religions have. For better or worse. I mean, I'm not here to judge it, but for better or worse, there's a unifying function that religions have, right? On a culture, from a cultural standpoint. But we are more concerned on the individual standpoint, right? And the individual and the underlying premises of our religions is our connection, our individual connection to the whole, right? And again, if God is not your word or your concept, think of nature, right? I know a lot of scientists and atheists don't believe in the concept of a creator or whatever, right? But there is no denying, and I think science has proven this, that the world is an interconnected organism, right? That the universe is an interconnected organism, right? Where it comes from, we don't know as of yet, right? Where did it originated? You know, we could say the Big Bang, but it's like, okay, what caused that singularity of it all, right? I mean, we're still trying to answer that particular question, right? But there is no denying of the interconnectedness that every single being, every single thing has a relationship aspect to one another, right? This is one of the things that the Eastern philosophies, you know, when you think of Hinduism, Buddhism, Zen, Shinto, they have a clear understanding of the interrelationship between things and people, you know, and all that stuff. You know, we are more individualistic in the West, right? We don't see the interconnectedness of a lot of things. We understand things in terms of separation.
Yeah, and I think that's a consequence of our of societal standards and
Yes.
the expectations that we have in society. And so I think where we're coming from, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think in our last episode we were talking about being present and living on purpose,
Yes.
and having a meaningful life, going through our cycles of life cycles. And so what I'm hearing you say is that it's important for us to choose whatever methodology works for us.
Correct.
In order to maintain that presentness and not be lost in the expectations of what society wants to put on us and put and hamper us with.
Yes.
Right.
But there's also a dance, right? Because again, we are social creatures, right? I mean, there's I don't think there's any denying that we are individuals, but also a part of a collective, right?
Right.
And then in that dance, right, could flow, or it could be like you're dancing with you're dancing salsa with somebody that doesn't know how to dance salsa. It's like it's
worst thing ever.
It's the worst because it's like you have to follow a certain rhythm, right?
You're stepping on their toes.
Yeah, you're like whoa,
or vice versa.
What all this turn?
Like how I am with you when we dance bachata.
Yeah, because you want to lead, and it doesn't work like that. But there's a certain dance between the collective and the individual, right? Because again, it's like most people, and I think I was reading this week that most people are walking away from religion at a faster rate than ever before, right? And it's like, and if you start really looking into it, it's like the idea of we have discovered a lot of new things when it comes to science, right? Science has discovered and dispelled a lot of things because this is something else that is interesting. Like people say, I believe in science. And I'm like, what the hell? Science is not a religion. You don't believe in science. Science is a process.
Right.
Right. It's a process of understanding. It's a process of discriminating and deducing and testing to see whether something is right or true. But it's not a belief system.
Right.
Right. I mean, it really isn't. It's a tool of discovery.
Right.
Right. And
it's
to guide. Right. So to say something like I believe in science is kind of like, huh? I don't make any sense to me personally, but whatever, right? But that what I do know and what I know that it's intended to do is a process of investigating, analyzing, and testing to determine whether something is actually factual, right? But the moment that something dispels that process, right, it's no longer true, right? Or you have something that is like discarded. They said, no, well, under a certain situation, we tested this, and we have all these different results. So no, there is no consistent aspect. That's why that's why you have to be careful about how quickly people use the term science when it comes to things, because sometimes you don't have enough tests. You have these polls that test 10,000 people, right? And you draw a conclusion from 10,000 people, when in reality, you have 8 billion people in the world. So you're looking at the percentage of small, and you could say within this range of, right, 5 to 6% this way or that way, this is the conclusion, right? But then again, there goes that possibility that is not always going to be like that. So you have to be careful about saying that science is a belief when it's more of a process. Anyways.
Okay.
Go back there.
Yeah.
So you can, I don't know why I went in that tangent.
That's okay. I let you too.
Yeah.
Shame on me.
It's your job to keep me on track.
I know.
But anyways,
I was interested.
What you need, what we're referring to here, yes, is the individual, right? The importance of selecting your path, and the importance of questioning if your vehicle is the right vehicle at the time, right? But also with the understanding that what you do also impacts the collective, because it's a beautiful dance, but it's a really tough dance to actually have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because in most religions, you're not. In most religions, you're not allowed to question. You're just allowed to accept. Which becomes problematic, because when your soul speaks to you and tells you that something's wrong, there's nothing in the world that could take you away from it. Right. So then shame comes in, fear comes in, isolation comes in, doubt comes in. When the vehicle that you choose, you're like, I don't think this vehicle is getting me to where I need to get to. I may need to change it. Right.
Okay. So before we move on, just, because I don't want to let our, listeners down, I have a quote.
That's right.
And this one is by, and I might be pronouncing this wrong. So it's Jizu Krishnamurti.
Yeah,
Krishnamurti, right? Okay. And it is, the whole of life from the moment you are born to the moment you die is a process of learning.
Yes.
Which is what you were alluding to
Mm-hmm.
in this first segment, even with the digression,
Mm-hmm.
because the idea is for you to be able to be open to
Correct.
different various opinions and what's going on, and not take one thing and this is the end all be all without exploring other
Mm-hmm.
options and being open to other possibilities.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes that's what we do is, oh, they said this, that's it. Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
believe that, and that's what it is, and that's not necessarily the case. I can't think of anything concrete as an example, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And doing our own due diligence and exploring the options that are available to us.
Correct. And this is why the scientific process is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of questioning and testing and deducing, right? That's an important aspect of just blindly believing in something.
Right.
Just because, right? I mean, I give you an example. My personal life, right? I've always been told, like, you're not going to heaven. You got the devil in you. And it's like, you know,
And why?
and why, right? It's
Why?
like because I don't follow precisely. I question a lot of different things, right? I'll give you an example, right? If the premise of all religions, I mean, and I'll challenge everybody that tells me otherwise, right? The premise of all religions, right? As expressed in the text, but also as expressed by the founders of those religions, right? It's one, right?
Mm.
Love thy neighbor as you would thyself, right? But if you love thy neighbor as you would thyself, like, let's say, like the Christ did, non-judgmental, accepting of everybody, right? Right? The worst of the worst, right? He accepted them, didn't judge, didn't condemn, right? That is the premise of what he taught. And not so much the premise of what he taught, it was the premise of what he did, right? And then if you start looking at all the different religions, it's the same premise all throughout every single religion, you know, and it manifests in different ways based on the culture that they're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the premise is there, right? To understand your divine nature in relationship to the whole, right? And science has proved that in relation, because, like, I could take my kidney and give it to somebody else and they will live and I won't die. And it could be whatever race, color, gender, whatever. My kidney will work on somebody else that might need it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which shows the interconnectedness of it all, of us all. And the religions are all there, but yet we are not able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not able to not judge other people. We're not able to condemn somebody else because we don't understand what they're coming from, what their religion is, what their belief system is, what this and that and the other is. We always are condemning and judging people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Villainizing others,
Mm-hmm.
just simply because we don't understand where they're coming from,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we go into this cycle because we believe that our Maserati is better than their Honda.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's understanding that if something works for you, right, then that's great. But in my experience, when I've come across a lot of different people as well, you're not this, so you're, well, you don't believe in whatever, then you're the devil. But we do that constantly.
Mm-hmm.
I was strong enough to be able to, like, have a conversation with anybody and say, I respect what you believe in because that is your belief system. I respect it. I admire it. I personally think religions are a beautiful thing, right? They give people a purpose. They give people a meaning. It helps them make sense of the chaos that is life, right? It gives them those guiding posts.
Mm-hmm.
It's a vehicle for the people that, okay, but me, who likes to know a little bit more about, why is this? Oh, why is that? Oh, wow, look at this. Oh, look at that. This looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, kosher and halal look kind of like the same thing.
So to summarize, basically what you're saying is live and let live.
Yeah, but that's the principle of all them all,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
But it's like, but in the more deeper level, right? In order for you, right, to have that connection to the whole, to, again, whatever you're going to call it, God, nature, the universe,
Mm-hmm.
right? That the connection to the whole, beyond, right, beyond the cultural, because this is what I'm getting at, right? Those things, there are things that connect us, right, to a temporal time and place or culture, right? We are Americans, or we are Ottomans, on that time and frame, that space, right? We are something in relationship to a concept, an idea that is fleeting, right? An idea of a country, an idea of an empire, an idea of those type of things. So we find attachment when it comes to that. But what I'm referring to is something to go a little bit, to go beyond that. It's that relationship to the whole of nature, right? The whole of the universe, because we are a part of it, and it is a part of us, right? So for you to be able to connect to your life and connect to the life of everything around you, right, you have to have that vehicle that gets you there. But once you pick it, whatever it is, and somebody does something else that is different than yours, don't plug the mote from your eyes before you start poking the motes from somebody else's eye, type thing, right? That's kind of like what I'm referring to. That's the main idea behind this.
So then what is it that you've done that has been this transformative sort of spiritual journey
for me, right?
For you.
And again, it's like you're using, like when we use words like spirituality, or
what is your vehicle? Right? Because I know it's hard. I don't like to use religions and spirituality and those words either, because a lot of people are like, ew, why do I got to go there? What's it? And that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, in order to live a more authentic and more on purpose life, and to be able to embrace things and be open to things that are happening and that are significant in your life, you have to choose a vehicle, right? So it's not necessarily religiously speaking or spiritually speaking. It's just in that interconnectedness that you're talking about, and in the way that we move through the life cycles that we experience. Correct. All of us are going to experience, period. We just do.
And the vehicle, again, the vehicle gives you a roadmap.
Right.
It gives you a foundational thing to conduct your life.
Right.
Right.
So what have you done?
So to me, it's been a hodgepodge.
Okay.
Right. It's like a hodgepodge of things, right? So obviously, I grew up Catholic, right? That's my culture, the given culture. It's Catholic, and I'll be honest with you, like I loved the ritual aspect of Catholicism, right? Going to mass, I loved that. The walking into the church and feeling a little bit like awestruck.
Yeah.
This is a different place, right? Like just the figures, the procession of it all, right? It kind of like put you in a different place, right? And that was I found it beautiful, except when the priest started to talk. That part I wasn't too crazy about, right? It didn't call for me, but it was just that the relationship when the priest will talk and the audience will respond. That ritualistic aspect, I was always like, it always appealed to me, right? But I didn't care much about the condemnation and all that stuff, right? We were fortunate enough to spend a lot of time in Miami, in the Kabbalah Center, and we went to the synagogue, and we spent a lot of time. And again, that beauty of the ritualistic aspect of it, the raising of the Torah, and be able to, see the beauty and there's something about listening to a different language, like a root language, right? The way that it's expressed and the singing of it, it's beautiful. It's like the same thing when you're listening to somebody reciting the Quran, right? It's like this poetic thing that doesn't really speak to the logic of things, right? Like it just speaks to the beauty of life. Because when you're listening to this person like sharing their soul, right? Like it's just beautiful. It's just like, holy, what? To me, right? It's like that dramatic aspect of my personality, like appreciates that, the beauty of it all, right? But when the dissolution of religion started fading from me, right? The one constant that I always stuck with me was always the work of Joseph Campbell and comparative religion, right? and then being able to focus on the similarities of things. It's like, this is similar in this culture, this is similar for whatever. It could be transfusion or individual arising, right? But looking at the similarities of things, like, help me see, like, okay, there is an underlying theme underneath this, right? Now, for a long time, by learning all this stuff, I was very inconsistent in what I did until more recently, right? So, on the practical sense, what's worked for me, number one, is meditating, right? And meditating for a couple of reasons. From a psychological standpoint, it's being able to sit there and confront all those aspects of my personalities that were holding me back, right? And confronting that. And now that I've done that, now it's more aspirational as to how do I connect and see the beauty of things, right? So motivation has been one thing. Meditation has been one thing. The continual studying of understanding certain things from different authors and different places, right? And being able to see that. And then now it's more understanding the individual journeys of people, and then be able to be somewhat of a guide, which is my intention, right? To be more of a guide because I understand it all, and be accepting of people, rather than condemning and telling them, you need to believe what I believe or you're going to hell, And I always joke around all the time, if I'm going to hell, the devil probably has an amusement park ready for me. But, but I don't. What about you? What about your? And those are, for me, those are the practices. The ritual of spending a day just reflecting of things, right? Spending a part of my morning reflecting on things and being thankful. Gratitude is one of the psychological things, but I think you have to go through the process of it all to be able to appreciate the beauty of what you've learned. I'm not too much of a person that likes to be like do this particular stuff with a lot of people. For me, it doesn't work. It doesn't feel genuine, right? When I'm doing it with a lot of people, it doesn't feel good. I think for me, it misses something. But when I'm alone and when I'm meditating and when I'm in that space of looking at beauty from that aspect and learning about the cohesiveness, the similarities of it all, that it's the part that is kind of like my vehicle. How about you?
So I think that for me, we're very different, which is the beauty of our relationship. We're different in the things that we do and the approaches that we take about how we navigate our life, our lives. And I definitely have, in watching you, you're very deep and profound about the processes and the rituals that you have, you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the whole point of this, right? We're not condemning other people. And I can certainly appreciate it because there's a discipline that's involved there that I have a deep respect for. And there are things that you have discovered that you've shared with me that have been really profound and have been like, wow, that's cool. That's your journey. That's cool. You know what I mean? And that's, again, while we're a collective, we're still individuals. And that's what we talk about with asoulsquest. We're still individuals, and how do we contribute to the collective, and the things that I do are like the butterfly effect, and that's how it affects the collective. So for me, I think that what has worked best for me is definitely taking the time every day to focus on being more self-aware and how I show up in the lives of other people, because I know that I affect other people. And the way that I do that is I have meditated now. I haven't been a big fan of that in the past, but I have taken that on as a more, I had to find what meditation worked for me. You know what I mean? And there are different meditations that people can do. You can do them running, you can do them walking, you can do them sitting by, at the beach or whatever works for you. That's the whole idea of choosing your vehicle. So I choose to get up early. I like to get up early in the morning. That's when it's quiet. The world is still, for all intents and purposes, still in hibernation, and just be at peace and one with myself and my higher being, my higher energy. And that's the connection that I like to feel. And it does humble me in a lot of ways. And it really does open me up to feeling things that I would not necessarily feel as I go through my day, because then there's demands and responsibilities that you have to meet. So I definitely in line with you when it comes to the meditation. And I think at the end goal is the same. And I think it's the same for everybody that's trying to calm the mind and be more, like I said, not to beat a dead horse, but to be more in purpose and be more authentic and be genuine and be a part of the collective, but also how I show up, like I said. And I've also done a lot of journaling. And I know we talked about this in the past too, a lot of journaling. I think in those pages, you can write things that you know aren't going to go anywhere else. And you know you're not going to be judged for those things. And I find it to be a very therapeutic way of being. I can say what I want, close it, and then move on and be okay with that, you know, and there's no judgment in that space. And just being very aware of my body and what I'm doing with my body and how I'm being, and also having exercising self-compassion. I think, and being and exercising forgiveness for the things that I do. Like, you know, we often beat ourselves up to keep up with the rat race of the world, and to how do other people want me to show up for them?
Precisely.
And I don't want to live that life, because that's not an authentic life for me. And so if I choose to do this today, be okay with that. You know, if I choose to drink a couple of beers, be okay with that. If I choose to, you know, some people to find other ways to do things and maybe frowned upon by other people. I don't, again, live and let live. I don't also want to practice that for myself, you know?
And this is what I was alluding about, the challenge between being an individual, right, in a collective, right? Because if in saying that you're choosing your vehicle, right, and this is my way, this is the way that I will follow, this is my path, my vehicle, it puts you direct conflict to society, right? It could ostracize you. You know, it did for those pillars of those religions. You know, whoever you looked into when it came to establishment of religion, whether it be the Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Abraham, like you name it, there is that potential to ostracize, right? Because being separate, because the majority of the this is a thing, right? When the majority is not always the best thing, right? And this is one of the criticisms of Socrates. This is one of the criticisms of Salam. There's one of the criticisms that anybody that really criticizes democracy really understands the difference, because the majority, it's not always the best thing for everybody to do, right? There's always a minority, right, that it's necessary, right? And this is the beauty of, like, if you really understand the way our political system was created, right? They understood, particularly here in the States, they understood the fallacies in which the collective could lead us to, and that descending minority that it's got to keep us honest as a whole, right? It's a very interesting dance, and you see it in at play constantly. You know, we say democracy is the best thing and all that stuff, but that idea of a representative republic in which, yes, you might be voted for the majority, but there is this group that is able to dissent if we see that we're going in a different direction, right? That right there, that dance, it's pivotal to the way things move. So you as an individual thinking that in your isolation, in your singleness of being, you think, oh, I don't matter. That is the completely erroneous thing, because you see things differently. It is important, because any transformation that you see in the society, that you see in a family, that you see in the different levels of interactions, comes from an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Any positive change and negative change that we've ever had, it starts with an individual and it affects the whole.
Mm-hmm.
So by you being authentic and saying, this is what I'm going to follow and this is how I'm going to get there, which is the vehicle. This is my path is to connect to the whole. My vehicle is AYZ, right? You are setting an example of an identity that ultimately will benefit the whole, right? And that is the beauty of who we are, right? But it's also the challenge, because we see ourselves as insignificance in the big scheme of things, right? So there is so many contradictions, right, in it all.
Yeah.
And there are so many challenges. But at the end of the day, if you really just simplify it and just take it all easy, it's like it's being able to find something that adheres you, right? And I forgot the Hebrew word for it, but there's a beautiful concept about ultimately the goal of the Torah, the goal of the Bible. The goal is for you to become more adhere to the Creator, right? Or creation itself, right? The universe, nature, to be more in sticky to that.
An adherence.
Adherence to it, right? And sometimes you have to follow your own path in order to get that adhesion, and by doing so, you influence other people.
Right. And I think the catalyst to that too is to be able to, it's like you said, you've touched on this before, is to be curious.
Yes.
And to not sort of diminish that desire that we might have. If there's a little spark, to not diminish that, to open yourself up to entertaining that spark.
Yes.
And then also being brave and
question.
courageous enough to live that life and question and be curious and move forward in that process, you know.
And I mean, there isn't any shock, to me at least, as to why a lot of people are walking away from religion or are walking away from it, from very dogmatic ways of thinking. And the reason being is because as we progressed, right, we are discovering a lot of different things, right, that are, wait a minute, this idea of guilt, right, which is prevalent in a lot of religions. You know, if you do, you know, this, if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell, or you're going to be condemned, or this and that, all this stuff, right? We know that that's not really what will happen, you know, because by science, we already know that what happens to our body is that our molecules disintegrate and our atoms go in different ways, and then they reconfigure in some other form in another place in another time, right? That's because energy doesn't die, you know, it just changes forms. So, like, we understand that, but to say, personally speaking, that someone is going to hell or somebody is going to be condemned, you know, it's not a practical interpretation of our stuff right now. But on the other hand, science has already, by using the process of science, we have proven the interconnectedness of things, right? And the importance of taking care of our environment, each other, you know, and all that stuff. Like, we have already understood the responsibility that all of us have for the collective. And to, when you live honestly, right, you're able to see that, right? There's a, you know, now in terms, right, a lot of people, if you look go online and you talk about in psychology terms, and you see all this stuff about narcissists, right? You know, we all have a little bit of narcissist in us, right? This desire to receive just for us, right? That natural impulse for self-preservation and the us, in the me, right? There's that inclination inside of us, is innate inside of us. Now, there's no need to deny that. Oh, I'm not selfish, I'm not self-centered. Like, we all are. We all are. It's in the degree of that self-centeredness that we fail to recognize, right? Now, the beautiful thing is that you could want to receive for yourself alone, right? And this is a very Kabbalistic principle. But you may want to also, the idea is to be able to evolve, to be able to receive in order to share, right? That's why the principles of, and again, every single religion, taking care of your guests, taking care of people, being a good host, is something that is shared, feeding the needy, helping the poor. Like all this stuff is the idea not, to take care of oneself and then also take care of the collective, because there is an importance between the two, But it also, you have to find your way. Mm-hmm. This is our purpose, is to be able to help people define and understand that their individual journey of self-discovery, of self-knowledge, of empowerment, it's for the purpose of understanding that they are a microcosm, right, of the collective. Because ultimately that is what we are.
Right.
And then manifesting that and then living from that premise. But that's the beauty of the hero's journey, because it has to be your way. You could take pieces from different people, which is one of the things that I've done, right? I've learned from Judaism, I learned from Christianity, I learned from Islam, I learned from Hinduism, I learned from, all these different informational things, right? And again, for a long time, it was challenging because I was like hopping back and forth and learning all these different things. But now I could read it, but I'd be certain of my belief system, right? And be certain it's like, this is what I do every day as a routine, as a ritual, to help me connect to that source from within. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds like you have a couple of different strategies, but is there anything else that you could offer people on a practical level?
On a practical level?
As far as, sort of, and for people who want to sort of try to connect, like things that, I shared a couple, but what do you think?
I would tell people to try some things out, right?
Okay.
And see if it resonates with you.
See if it works. Okay.
Right? And see if it resonates with you. I'm big on synchronicities, right? Because a lot of the things that I haven't been experienced to have just happened in a mysterious, beautiful way, right? So like, for instance, we were at a concert, wasn't thinking about it, and that's how I came across a flyer, and that's how I got introduced to Kabbalah, right? And being around Judaism. Mm-hmm. It was at a concert. I wasn't planning on it. I was just there, right? Mm-hmm. And that kind of like, it piqued my interest, and I wanted to learn more about it, right? Now, do I have the same thing with Islam, like wanting to learn more about it, and then having a friend that is like, oh yeah, I could just convert it. What is it? Just convert it. What is it? What is the thing? Oh, it's like, how do you do the convert? Nothing. You just have to say this. Mm-hmm. And then this is the disciplines that you follow. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Right? Does it mean that I want to do that? No, not in particular, but I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Right? And I appreciate the journey that those religions have, right?
It's like going shopping. It's like going shopping. I'm going to take this and put this in my basket.
It's like making a recipe, right?
Like a fruit salad.
Yeah, it's like making a recipe. You're going to take different things from here, right?
And so then at the end of the day, to put those things together to make that meal or that recipe that resonates with you, that you work. Yeah.
But this is the beauty of living in the States, right? For whatever people might want to say, right? For whatever people say in the conflicts that we're facing right now, this is the only place that I think of that you are able to explore and see different points of views from a Native American point of view, right? Primitive points of views to like more advanced psychological concepts of thinking and thought, right? Mm-hmm. And everything in between. Mm-hmm. You could explore that here without judgment, right? Without condemnation, without persecution. The only true persecution that we get is from individuals that believe that their Maserati is better than my Honda.
That's a good point.
It's like that's the only condemnation, but this is one of the only free societies in which you could practice and be whatever you want to believe and whatever you want to do, right?
That's the beauty of it.
You don't violate the rights of other people.
Right. Which is that's the whole premise, right? Is that we want to live an authentic life, but not violating the rights of other people.
Precisely. But that's the principles. I mean, and even if you go into all these different modes, even science will tell you that, to live in a fruitful society, there's a give and take that happens, right? So, and it can be swayed just one way. This is one of the reasons why we're having so many difficulties, right? Because financially, everything has swayed in one direction, right? And this is not me making it up or having a political agenda, but the reality is that it's factual, right? Everything has shifted in one particular way. So when you have that, then you have turmoil, then you have, all the anger, frustration, and all the things that we have. But when we have an equilibrium and you start learning, like, oh, wait a minute, well, this is not much different than this. Well, wait a minute. Well, a nun covers their hair. Now, Jewish women who follow the process wear a wig. Muslim people, oh, why? Because there's a logic behind this thing, and there's a consistency amongst them all.
Yeah.
But my Maserati is better than your Honda.
Yeah.
That's the.
I understand.
Those are the things, and again, it's like it's not about being better or worse. It's like how are we connecting,
right?
And something is going to talk to you more than something else, and that's okay. And that's why you can't condemn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's good. So I think that we've kind of expressed what we want to express. Is there anything that you want to contribute finalize?
The final thing is really what are the benefits of picking a vehicle, right?
Okay, yeah, right? That's good.
That's a good thing. Like once you understand your vehicle, right? Once you have your practices that you follow on a regular basis, right? Once you have that consistency and that frame of mind, right? What it does is that it gives you like a guidepost of things to learn, right? Of processes to follow, and and the thing that it gives you, right? It's a reference point to always go back to, but it's like fractals, right? Fractals is like this thing in nature, right? That is like it duplicates itself over and over again. Even if you go up or if you go down, it's the same thing over and over again. But it's self-discovery, right? So you discover different aspects of yourself, because that's like taking this, right, the vehicle and the roadmap to the previous episode in which we talked about the unfold, the what lies at the end of the quest, is this idea of always evolving and learning and experiencing and seeing things and connecting the dots and say, oh wow, that's pretty cool, and oh man, it's like maybe we should do something about not what we eat, right, but how we kill what we eat, right? How we treat. Do we just slaughter animals, or do we do something like other cultures have done, which is a reverence to the animal, right? Do we continue to charge this predatory amount of interest, or do we do something like, riba free, in which the community benefits, the whole benefits, and even when it comes to, everybody could still live an affluent, beautiful, but everybody benefits, not just a few, not just
everybody prospers.
And it's not just it's not a socialistic point of view, because a socialist point of view is like, let's collectively put everybody, right, which almost robs away from the incentives of people to wanting to be better. No, it's just thinking about wanting to be better, because it is mandatory and it is important to be better, because me being better and being the best version of me benefits everything, right?
And not only that, but also bringing other people with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Because consequently, it's what it is. Yeah.
Because that's the whole idea of segregating each other or separation, when we separate each other. But no, I don't want to break off of that, what you're saying. I'm just...
Yeah, so the idea is to be consistent. Be consistent with it. Once you define, okay, these are my quote unquote rituals or my disciplines that I'm going to do on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on whatever yearly basis, continue to do that.
Yeah.
Continue that. And you'll discover things in those moments, and then things will expand.
Yeah.
And then you start recognizing things, right? And the other part is like guard yourself. Like we're going to talk about an episode about the dual aspects of who we are, our left side and our right side, the two different, and the balance of the things in between, right? Because we also have to recognize our tendency, right? This is like, you got to guard against this tendency of feeling good and then feeling superior, right? And feeling like, I know this. Right. Well, I did this. Why can't they do it? It's like you have to guard against it, because that's the beginning of the guilt because the beauty of religion gets lost in the guilt.
Right. Yeah. Guilt and then judgment.
And judgment.
And then and it leads to all the other emotions that start. I could just see that happening.
Yeah. And you have to guard against that because it's not like, and again, it's like, to me, the devil is never on the outside. The devil is right here. And you have to understand that devil. It's like look at the atrocities that we have caused. Where is the devil in that? It is humans. It's us.
Yep.
And you got to be honest with yourself about saying and recognizing your potential for damage.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to understand it and guard against it. Right?
Yeah. Awareness.
Because it's awareness.
Yeah.
That's part of like, and again, you see how self-awareness, right? It's one of the scientific principles of social and emotional learning, right?
Yeah.
Being self-awareness. Being self-aware, then be socially aware, right? Because the more aware that you are individually, the more impact you'll have on your surrounding. And it could be a small surrounding. It doesn't have to be something as grandiose as something like Jesus, Muhammad, the Buddha, Moses, Abraham did. But it is important.
Right. Okay. So just to end this episode, I know this is not normal, but I do have a quote.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Because I think that it's really related. It really relates to a lot of the things that you were saying in terms of collecting from different areas. So it's by Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Oh, that's another one of my composites. I said 5, but then he's like that too. Sorry, go ahead.
I imagine the list is pretty long for you.
No, it's not very long. I don't think there's more than 10 on my list.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it is, make your own Bible. Select and collect all the words and sentences that in all your readings have been to you like the blast of a trumpet.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful.
And so basically what I get from that is what you're saying. Take from the various religions, take from the different practices, take from other people. Let there be an exchange, a reciprocity for us to be the collective, but also pursue things as individuals.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for listening and or watching this episode. Tune in every other Wednesday to the ASQ Podcast as we embark on this transformative journey together. Remember to follow us on all social media outlets and visit us at asoulsquest.com.